Okay, we are at the end of day 2 of our recovery. We've removed close to, I'd say at least a ton of dead fish from the system, which is critical because while we have plant filtration that's very, very effective at removing ammonia, that's a huge hit to have a couple thousand pounds of dead fish and 75,000 gallons of water. And our ammonia levels are going up, although they, starting today, they trended downward. Our plants took a pretty good hit too because of the low temperatures. They weren't photosynthesizing the way they should have. In greenhouse 1, we had a carbon monoxide problem that hurt the plants. So we're monitoring the ammonia levels. They are coming down. The fish seem to be okay. We don't have any new losses, but we're still getting fish that died several days ago floating up to the top, especially as we move things around. So we're going to go into greenhouse 2 and start talking about the next phase of recovery. We're not quite finished with phase 1, which is removal of dead fish, because there's still some we're finding, but we've got the bulk of that done. Our ammonia levels are coming down. So now we're going to start our second phase of recovery, which is going to be much longer than 2 days. So we're going to go in greenhouse 2. And as you can see, here's a mixed short fin molly vat, and we have a few dead fish. Nothing significant since we have several hundred fish in there, and we probably lose a few of them a day anyway, especially since they've been handled. Oops, there we do have a couple breeder cichlids lost that floated up. I have noticed some live fish. That kind of leads me into what our second phase of recovery is. We're going to start out, we're going to inventory all of our vats so we can determine what our losses are. We're going to start with our 300-gallon breeder vats. And what we'll do is siphon one down, and we'll start in the morning. We'll pull out the hotels, which are these, and the cages, and plant, and then throw some siphons on it, siphon through a net so that if any little fish get caught by the siphon, that we don't lose them. We'll siphon it down and see what's left. We'll record that in our database, and we'll just go down. We'll start with one row, go down the row, go down another. We have four rows of 300-gallon breeder vats, 2 in this greenhouse and 2 in the other greenhouse. And we'll do that. Then we'll start with the 55-gallon vats, siphoning them down and inventorying the fish, recording it in the database. So we can calculate our losses, which might be important for FEMA and for Goliad County, because we are going to have significant losses, monetary losses, and that might help Goliad County get FEMA money or money from the state. I'm probably going to, there are a couple dead ancestris. We polyculture ancestris with our cichlids. We set up there's another one. They like these wooden caves with a brick to hold it down. The wood's pretty saturated, pretty waterlogged, but they like to spawn in there. A male goes in there, entices a female in, lays these incredible purple eggs. They're fuchsia, one of those colors, and he guards the eggs and the babies, and you see there are 5 dead ones in this vat. Oh, here's another. What I've noticed is they float up a lot later than a lot of the other fish do. I'll put it there and we'll take those out later. Stir this around, see if we have others. I'm afraid we lost all of our ancestors. If we do find any that survive, I want to breed from them because they're going to be cold hardy. So we'll start with this vat in the morning. Pull these 2 cages out. Pull the cichlid hotels out. Oh, here's another ancestress. 2 more ancestress. And then tomorrow I'll show you how we siphon them down, and we'll inventory what's in there. If there's anything, we'll put them back in and set the vat back up. A couple benefits of this: we really aren't set up for water changes because we're on a big recirculating system. We use plant filtration. We don't really do water changes. We lose some water, especially during the summer, to evaporation. We lose some water in our normal operations because we're taking water out, and we have an overflow. If the sump gets too high, water overflows into a wetland, which one of these days I'm going to convert to a fig orchard, but right now it's just got a bunch of willow trees. And so we do lose water that way, probably on average 1 to 2% of the system a day. So that's not a huge water change. But since our ammonia levels are elevated a little bit, I want to get as much system water out as possible and let the well fill back in. And I've got water turned up pretty high. You can see a couple valves over there running water in. So I'll point to row A over there. Those first 2 vats on row A have well water running in. The smaller from that 1-inch line, PVC line. And so as we siphon almost 300 gallons out into the gutter, it runs down to the sump on the other end of the greenhouse, and when it overfills there's another dead fish. When it overfills the sump, the water runs out, and that represents ammonia-laden water running out, and we have well water coming in without ammonia. So it serves a couple purposes. Let me check the water temperature here. That's a hard thermometer to read. Let me read this one. Oh, we've gone up to 75 degrees approximately. I don't want we've opened up the door of the greenhouse and blowing some air out. I'd like to keep the temperature down some because ammonia is more toxic at higher temperatures and high pHs. Unfortunately, we have very high pH. Our pH is around 8.5. There are a few more dead fish. So I'm trying to keep the temperature down lower than normal for that purpose. Anyway, we're going to just go down this row, inventory, update our database. We have a database where we record the number of fish, their sizes, and what date they're set up, and a couple more fish in the gutter here. You might note we're walking on cinder blocks that are set on edge, and you see water about 6 inches deep. These are 8-inch cinder blocks, and this way any leak goes into the floor gutter. We don't worry about leaks in vats, and surprisingly 3 of our vats developed leaks during the storm. I'm kind of surprised and don't know exactly why. but that did happen. Another breeder fish dead. By the way, the buckets you see along here are, we call them slop buckets. Basically, we throw excess plant, dead fish, any gunk into them, and we dump that onto worm beds, compost piles that have litter worms in them. And we have interesting litter worms. I wrote a blog about them because we got them identified. They aren't the two normal species. It's actually a North American native. We've had them since 1997. Had them originally in Santa Fe, New Mexico. And I knew something was weird about them when I had them in a compost pile, and I broke out a chunk of frozen compost and put it in the greenhouse. It thawed out and the worms crawled away. And the two species that are normally used as litter worms can't survive that. Another OB female dead. Like I say, we're still picking up dead fish, but nothing like we were the first couple days when we pulled out a couple thousand pounds of fish. In a few weeks, we'll know exactly what our losses were. Another dead fish. Interestingly enough, none of the fish that we're pulling out now are recent deaths. They're all, like that last one, fairly rotten. They've been dead for a while, so we're not getting new losses, which is a bit surprising because our ammonia was until earlier today 1 part per million, which is about 4 times the toxic level. So the fish are handling that fairly well. We may pay a price for that later on. We'll see. This is, by the way, this is our current workhorse in ammonia control. This is hornworts, Rataphyllum demersum. Each one of these growing tips under good conditions, which is temperatures like today, grow 1 inch a day. And we pull out, under normal circumstances, we average pulling 25 pounds of this out a day. And we put it on worm beds, compost it. One of these days I'm going to do a quick calculation based upon that wet weight of how much nitrogen, which is ammonia, we're pulling out of the system. It's got to be an incredible amount. We also have the taller plant with the big leaves is Ojo Santa, Piper aridum, which is a Central American cooking herb. It's used to make a mole, and the leaves in Austin and Houston, each one of those leaves sell for about 50 cents to $1 a piece for cooking. They wrap fish or meat in it, and it gives it kind of a I'm not a cook, so I can't tell you the flavor. Licorice or yeah, I guess licorice. I don't know.
It smells like licorice.
Yeah. Okay. I can't even boil water, so it's not. Yeah. I can't claim any expertise on cooking, but at any rate, it's used in cooking. We're still getting some bigger fish. A few. Let's see. There's another one. But those fish have been dead for 3 or 4 days, especially at the temperatures we've had until we've had 2 sunny days in a row, and the water temperature's gone from about 68 Fahrenheit to 75 Fahrenheit. Air temperature, if we don't open the doors at this time of the year, if it's sealed up, air temperatures will go up to between 110 and 120 degrees Fahrenheit. But with all this water, it takes a while to transfer that heat to the water. That's a dead molly and a couple dead guppies. The guppies seem to have done fairly well. we polyculture guppies with our cichlids, and we can get hundreds of guppies out of one of these vats, feeder guppies, even with cichlids that are eating them. Here's another ancistrus lost. He's been dead a long time, so, or she actually. So I'm afraid none of those made it. While we still have a few dead fish floating up in the vats, the bulk of the dead fish, here's another one. Nice female gold OB dolphin. See, even a female has a little bit of a hump. I'm not happy about that. Here's another dead fish. Here's a feral plecostomus. You can see in the water there. Oso, you want to fish? There's Oso eating a very expensive breeder fish. Very expensive sushi. Is that good, Oso? This is the sump in this greenhouse has two steps. What I was going to set up as a plant filter, but decided it wasn't necessary. Although you can see the aretum's kind of grown into it. And then that's a 4-foot deep sump on the other side of that ridge. And usually I see fish swimming around there, but nothing like normal. You can see back there that white foam is unfortunately fats from dead fish, which is why the ammonia level was up. And back in the corners, hard to get to, there are probably still some dead fish that we'll continue to pull out. But as I said, the main focus from here on out will be inventorying all the vats. We have, to give you an idea, each one of the rows of white vats has approximately 40 vats. We have this row of 110s, I think is 20 some odd vats. We have about 30 300s, and so we have 4 rows of in this greenhouse, 4 rows of 40. So we have over a couple hundred vats we have to go through in this greenhouse. The other greenhouse actually has a few more because we don't have 110s. And we're trying out these 110s, which Carl tripped over one of our cichlid hotels that we pulled out so that fish would float up so the fish weren't trapped. But we're trying the 110s, and which was a great idea until last winter. We had several families of raccoons that found ways into the greenhouse due to damage from Hurricane Harvey almost 3.5 years ago. The damage we haven't repaired, and they found their way in, and they found that fishing for fish in the 110s was fairly effective. The 55s are too deep. The 300s are mostly too deep for them to fish effectively, but the 110s are really good, and they decimated a bunch of fish. So we trapped, trying to think, Carl, you remember, I think we were 18. Yeah.
We have a video of releasing one.
Yeah. We live trapped them and released them on a ranch that the owner said it was okay to release them on. It's next to a creek, so they have a good habitat. I'm not sure, maybe he's training coon dogs or something with them, but they at least have a shot at it. I'm not going to kill them. but they are annoying little animals. They're cute but annoying. So tomorrow we start the inventory process. I hope to get through, I don't know, it's going to be hard to say. Normally in our normal operations, we process on a fish work day, we process 2 300s and the associated 55 gallons, 55 gallon vats that have fish of that same type. We're going to have to do a lot more than that, and I've decided not to process all the same fish at one time, but actually inventory each vat. What do you have there?
Big plico.
Okay, yeah. The plicos mostly seem to make it. We have noticed a couple with swollen eyes, bacterial infections to their eyes. They probably will die, but plicos, by the way, this way early in last century, the San Antonio Zoo, where the San Antonio River comes up in 70-degree Springs and runs through the zoo, and they have tilapia and plecostomus, hypostomus plecostomus all over the place, and the plecostomus have spread downriver and actually survived down the San Antonio River all the way to Goliad, probably about 100 miles from San Antonio. So today they wouldn't do that. They wouldn't introduce something like that. But at the time, people didn't really care about exotic species the way they do now. But we do find tilapia are not quite as cold resistant as plecostomus, but we find them in the local creeks here, because there was at Coleto Creek, which is about 4 or 5 miles from here, there's a reservoir for as a cooling lake for a coal-fired plant, which is going to be shut down in the next couple of years, 3 or 4 years. And there was a tilapia farmer on that lake, and when they went out of business, they apparently just released the tilapia. So we find tilapia in Coleto Creek. Winters like this probably do a pretty good job of cutting down their population. Anyway, tomorrow we start the long, tedious process. I'm hoping we can do at least 6 and maybe 8 300s a day. We're suspending our wholesale shipments, mainly because we've lost most of our sailfish. So we probably won't be doing those shipments for several months. Retail, we'll just have to see what we have as we get through the inventory process. So I'm hoping maybe we can hit 8 300s a day. If we can do that, it'll be 4 days to finish the 300-gallon vats, and then we switch to the 55-gallon vats, which are a lot quicker. By the way, one of the organisms that handled the cold weather just fine are gold mystery snails. Texas only recently, in about the last year, allowed the possession of mystery snails. They had, because apple snails are considered a possible threat to rice farmers, they banned apple snails, and they just took everybody in the same family until enough people complained and pointed out that mystery snails don't eat plants. They eat algae and basically meat. That they shouldn't have been listed. So that's a short-fin molly that looks like he has a lot of Mexicana, Pecilia mexicana in him. little bit of orange on his tail, a dark tail. Yeah, in life he would be kind of bluish with kind of pink fleck, scaled outlines. At any rate, they unlisted them, and a friend of ours, I don't know, about 10 months ago said, hey, I've got these a couple hundred little mystery snails, you want them? And I said sure, put them in, and got another, that's actually a convict cichlid. By the way, I think we probably have 100% loss of convict cichlids, which is a shame because we were getting really close to solid orange female pinks, and on the blacks a lot of blue and green and orange. So I'm hoping we save some of those, but I'm kind of pessimistic about it. Anyway, on the mystery snails, we chunked them into a few vats. They all reproduced. You can see all the egg cases around the side. By the way you can tell mystery snails as opposed to apple snails is mystery snails have these kind of light pink egg cases. Apple snails have fuchsia, bright purple egg cases. So anyway, there's a fair market for these. In fact, I'm probably going to get other colors of them, but we're going to put them on birth control. They're a pain in the 300s because we don't have, you may note on the 55s, most of them have these strainers. They can't block those up, but they're the perfect size. Oh, that's interesting. Oh, well, Maya's not eating. She hates mollies, but there was a cichlid there she was eating. The drains on the 300s are perfect size for a mystery snail to block up, so they're kind of a pain. So we're putting them on birth control, trying to balance what we can sell against what we produce. There are probably, there's one blocking a drain. The hornwort itself is kind of a pain. I try to keep the hornwort away from the drains because it'll stop it up too. But I think I will get multiple colors of mystery snails, and surprised at the market for them and how much they bring each wholesale. Other thing that we raise a lot of are cherry shrimp, and they seem to have survived the freeze just fine. We also raise scuds, and they actually, I think, like the cool weather. I'm going to increase scud production, and right now we just wholesale them, and there are a number of people who buy them in large quantities from us and then resell them on Aquabid and eBay, and I think I may try going the retail route on them. We sell 1,000 of them for $40 plus shipping, and on eBay and Aquabid 50 of them are sold for $18 to $20, so do the math. It might be something we should do. So tomorrow we start this long process. We will give you all updates, and as we update our database, we'll tell you what our losses were on particular fish, and we'll see. Every time we have a major crisis, and we've had several, our move from Santa Fe to Goliad was one. We were primarily raising rainbow fish, and we got here, and there's a little protozoan, crustacean that doesn't really bother other fish much, but is deadly to rainbows, Chilodonella. We got a Chilodonella infection somehow, wiped out our breeders. As we were recovering from that, getting our rainbow breeders back. Hurricane Claudette crushed greenhouse 1, which is all we had next door. It's similar to this one, same size. Crushed it in 2003. We hurriedly built this greenhouse to move the survivors over here before winter, then rebuilt 1. Then later on we added 3. By the way, greenhouse 3, in order to save, because it shares a sump with greenhouse 2, in order to save the fish in greenhouse 2, or attempt to save them, we abandoned it. We cut it off, and I have not gone in there in 3 or 4 days. I don't know how bad it's going to be, but I think it's going to be pretty bad. Anyway, we'll start phase 2 tomorrow and keep y'all updated. See you then. Come on, Maya. So, fan.